Hi everyone, welcome to video 2 for question 2 of your chapter 6 review. So the question reads, find the amplitude, period, horizontal shift, and midline of the equation. F of x is equal to 4 times the sine of pi over 4x minus pi over 2 plus 7, then sketch the graph. So what I want to note here is before we actually do any extra work, we need to do a little bit of cleanup here in order for us to quickly read through the function and pop out the necessary items that we have listed on the left-hand side here. So right underneath the function that I have written here, I'm going to note that I need to factor what's going on inside of the sine function. So I'm going to factor out a pi over 4 first. So then I'm just going to be left with, inside that second set of parentheses, I will be left with x minus 2. And then I will do plus 7. We need to do this because if we don't, then we're going to misidentify what our horizontal shift actually is. Because if you recall, I'll write it under in red, the general format of our transformed function will have the amplitude times, in this case, the sine function, with the horizontal stretch or compression, and that is multiplied by x minus the horizontal shift plus our vertical shift. So let me go ahead and clean this up a little bit to get rid of some of the stray marks. So as you can see, the way that I have it written in the center in that navy blue color, I can quickly identify the pieces that I want. So with regards to the midline, I know that my midline is going to be a positive 7. So in other words, my midline, having it start at the x-axis, it's been moved up 7 units. So since I'm already here, and I'm going to use my color coding, I'm going to go ahead and sketch my midline in, so that's going to help me out. So the next thing with amplitude, so amplitude we can clearly see has been labeled here. So we have a vertical stretch of 4. We also have a horizontal stretch of 2. Remember that with the House of Lies, we actually want to move to the right 2 units. Okay. The period is going to involve a little bit more lifting here. So we know that b is equal to pi over 4, but please note that b does not represent the period. We do know, however, that the period can be found by doing 2 pi divided by b. So if we go ahead and do a substitution, since we know what b is equal to, we have this complex fraction of 2 pi divided by pi over 4. And again, knowing what we know about the division of fractions, we can skip what we have in the numerator, we can flip the denominator value, and we can multiply. And if you need to, feel free to put a 1 underneath the 2 pi to help keep everything visually organized for yourself. But in doing this, I can see that my pi's will reduce out, and this is going to leave me with a period of 8. All right. So now it's just a matter of, let's go ahead and put this together. So usually with a sine function, we're starting at the center on the vertical axis. However, in our case, we're shifting to the right too, so instead of starting here, which is, if you can see that purple dot on the y-axis, I'm going to move it over to the right too. Okay? The other thing that I want to note here, and I probably should have kind of identified it here, so I know that my period is 8. And again, if you recall from class, we've said we're dealing with a circle, and we usually cut our circle into quadrants, or in other words, 4 pieces. So I know that each quadrant, assuming that we have a period of 8, will cover, we'll do 8 divided by 4, or in other words, 2 units. So here's what I want to note now. So I know that I'm starting to the right 2, so I've already indicated my point in purple. I now know that from here, since the sine function does start at the midline, I'm going to travel upward. And I know that I'm going to want to travel upward 4 units, and I'm also going to want to move over 2 units. So I'm going to go over to the 4, so I'm just going to kind of indicate this in blue so we can all kind of see. So I went to the right 2 units, and then I'm going to go up 4 units from 7. So my next point is going to be located at 411. Okay, and we know that when we move to the next 2 units, I'm going to come back to the midline. So I'm going to go over to the right 2, and I'm going to, at 6, at the x value of 6, I'm going to put my next point. So now I know with my period I can go over to the right 2, and again my amplitude is 4, so I'm going to go down to 3. To be clear, when you are doing this on the test, you don't need to indicate the dashed lines that I have here, showing how far I went over for the period and how far I went up for the amplitude. I'm just kind of showing this to illustrate it and offer a clearer picture in this explanation. So we can continue in this manner. Sorry, my point's a little bit off. So then when we get to 10, we're back to the midline. And then when we get to 12, I'm going to go back up. 14, I'm back at the midline. And then 16, I am down here again. And if we wanted to, we could go in the opposite direction. So I could, starting again back where x is equal to 2, I can go back to where 0 is, and I can start below, and we can continue on. So this is actually all done now. We just have to connect it. So if we connect, there's the rough sketch of our graph, and we're actually all done. So if you have any questions, please feel free to message me. I hope that this video was helpful, and I think that's all I have to say for that one.